Hello my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to our /PettyRevenge, where people get little wins on others. And in today's episode, guys, crazy Karen neighbors are at it again, and OP's psycho neighbor lies to the whole neighborhood to destroy his life. And it backfires, guys. I hope you enjoy the stories, don't shake your heads too hard, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. So, the backstory is, my grandpa passed away 2 years ago, and I moved into his house. He was pretty healthy, but he let the yard go down a bit. The grass was maintained, but the trees were overgrown, his pond and patio was dirty, etc. Ever since moving in, I've been trying my best to maintain the backyard. Well, for the past few weeks, the backyard's been falling a bit, as stress from work has creeped in and then I got sick. One day, while still sick, my neighbor rings my doorbell to complain about the mess in the back, and me, not being in the best mood, told them, if it bugs you that much, you're more than welcome to do the work. So following that, bylaw came by, and they were very understanding about my situation, and they gave me more than enough time to feel better and mow my lawn. Well, that whole situation pissed me off, and I wanted to get the typical white picket fence, as there wasn't a fence, and we were passively looking for a dog. So I decide, screw it. And then I built the largest fence I could. And since her house was right on the property line, she now looks out the window. And instead of seeing my backyard, she sees a wood fence. Guys, that is such a wonderful petty revenge. And you know what they say, guys, good fences make good neighbors. And what would have made it even better is if OP painted the side that Karen has to look at a really ugly color. And if I were in OP's shoes, I'd be going with a picture of a clown, to be honest. And while we're on the topic of neighbors and fences, listen to this post. So 2 years ago, my husband and I bought our first house. First on the list was the backyard and removing a laurel bush on the back property line that went 7 feet deep. Our yard wasn't that big to begin with, so we wanted that extra space. And so the plan was to remove it and put up a fence that matched the other parts of our property. When I went to notify our neighbors, just to be nice, they were super nice about it and welcomed us into the neighborhood. Well, 2 days later, we were startled to see the neighbor knocking on our back door, trespassing, because he said we didn't answer the front door. He said to us that he didn't agree with the fence after all and that we couldn't cut down the laurels. One of their arguments was that the previous owners didn't mind the laurels, so we should just keep them. Well, my husband and I are both attorneys, and we decided we weren't gonna do the back and forth. We were going to hire a surveyor to come and confirm the property line. Well, it turns out that almost all the laurel roots were in fact on our property. So again, we told the neighbors that we were moving forward with the fence. And after seeing the markers, they were pissed. My cousin and uncle helped us put up the fence. And the husband neighbor could not have been more rude. The guy was standing a foot away from them on his property, just breathing down their necks while they put up the fence, basically calling us horrible neighbors. So fast forward a year, and husband neighbor texts my husband asking to talk. So they meet at the fence. And it turns out they have a cedar tree about 7 feet in diameter on their property, close to the fence, that they want to remove, but they're asking us for the removal to be done from our property. Neighbor tells us that they need to remove a portion of the fence, and then bring a cherry picker and wood chipper down our driveway to our backyard, and do the entire project on our property, because they don't have access to their backyard from the street. Obviously my husband's dumbfounded, but he's still super nice, considering the fence drama, and he says, well, that's a really big ask. And the neighbor says, why? And then proceeds to say if we say no, then they won't be able to afford the project. And then says he's sorry about the fence situation and hope we can move forward and now we can be friends. So my husband comes and tells me, and he says he'd be willing to say yes if they pay us and sign something saying that they're liable for everything. But I can't stop laughing. Literally no amount of money they could pay would convince me to say yes. So aside from liability factor, it felt great to say sorry, not happening. We've received no response, and their project was stopped. Needless to say, we still don't have a relationship with them. Yeah, so I don't think anyone in OP's situation would say yes to that, guys. Did the neighbor forget how much of an a-hole he was to OP and his wife when they first moved in? And now he's asking them for a favor. And guys, I love OP's wife's thinking though, that no amount of money they can offer will convince her to say yes, and that's the pettiness I love. So this is a bit of a long one here, but I think it's best to give the backstory. So I finally moved into my own place around 7 months ago, and I was so happy. All of my weekends spent working and sleeping in my mom's dining room had paid off. The lady who owned the house before me was older, and she was moving into assisted living. The first night I move in, there's nothing in the house but boxes, me, and my pup. All is going well until it gets to bedtime and my dog can't settle in the new place. The neighbor's dog clearly didn't take well to my pup's cries, and so begins a barking war. The pair of them bark and bark until 1 a.m. Cue the crazy neighbor. The woman comes knocking on my door, and she lets me know that my dog's barking. And in my head, I'm thinking, yeah, so is yours. But I'm new to the area, so I just apologize and get back to trying to comfort my dog. The morning after, I knock on the next door and apologize again for the noise the night before. The lady gives me nothing but grief, but I brush it off. That day, I do nothing but play with my pup and get him comfortable in his new place. Now, this in itself isn't crazy, but man, this lady is persistent. A few days later, I'm in my garden and she comes to ask why my mother had bought me a house in this area. I explained to her that it's my place, that I bought it, and I chose the area. She then tells me that I would never get a mortgage because, look at me. She says that while gesturing at my appearance, not that she knows anything about me. Again, I just brush it off. That night, she's banging on our joining walls at 9 p.m. and she's shouting that I'm being too loud. This time, I'm really not. I'm not doing anything and my dog's asleep. The day after, she's at the garden wall, telling me how I'm disrespectful for making so much noise, and that I'd better stay quiet or else. She tells me that there's no way that she's living next door to a loud brat. This time, I finally decide to say something back to her. I told her that I haven't just dropped $16,000 on my own place to have her set me a 9 o'clock bedtime. She's been pretty quiet since then, but she's had the odd comment to make here and there, but nothing major, until last Thursday. So last Thursday, I'm working from home and there's a knock on my door. It's the crazy neighbor. The conversation goes something like this. She screams at me saying, "Move your car, my mom's coming over." I look outside and my car is in front of her house, but I'm in a meeting and I don't care. Plus, there's plenty of space for her mom to park. I basically tell her, hey, I'm not moving my car. The crazy neighbor says, and why the hell not? I tell her, who do you think you are speaking to me like that? I don't have to move my car. You can park anywhere you want on the street, lady. And she replies, F you. It's at this point I go and try to close my door, and she forces it back on me, body checking the door, and then she tries to come inside my house. I shove her back out, lock my door, and call the police. Non-emergency. The woman spends the next 5 minutes screaming at my front door for me to come and move my car, but I just go back to work. A few hours later, the police come and speak with me. They tell me I can park where I like, and if she has a problem with noise, that she can make a noise complaint to them, and that she can no longer harass me about it. They tell me not to worry, and then go speak with her. Now, I don't know what's been said, but I haven't heard a peep from her since. Cue the petty revenge. My car has not and will not be moved from the front of her house. I can work from home 80% of the time, and I live so close to work that I can walk to it. And the joy I get every single time I see my car in front of her house is one I can't even explain. I hope she loves seeing that little beater in front of her house every time she looks out her window or leaves her house. Little wins, I suppose. You know, it's always miserable people who tend to complain about the littlest things, guys. And I'm not surprised that the Karen tried to tell OP how to behave in her own home and bully her like that. Kudos to OP for standing up to that Karen and letting her know that she won't go down that easy. So I live in an apartment in the downtown of a capital. It's still fairly quiet, as the bedroom side of it faces a little courtyard that we share with our neighbors instead of the street. Well, it was quiet until the new neighbors moved in. They own a dog that barks desperately all the time, and they have 2 annoying little girls that scream bloody murder outside in the mornings, just screaming as loud as they can, seemingly for fun. And nobody stops them until someone shouts out the window for them to knock it off. Now, I can't say I blame them, seeing as how their parents don't seem to be able to raise them nor their dog, so trying to get attention by any means seems to be the thing. I honestly feel sorry for the kids. The parents also love parties, and they love to take the party outside when the weather's nice. They would sit outside smoking, scream laughing, drunkenly singing, and so on. And it's the courtyard, and it has a lot of echo, so it's loud. The point is, they're inconsiderate a-holes, but I don't feel like facing them directly as I'm not confrontational. and they also seem dodgy and unstable. So the new thing seems to be spreading out their little parties. They've started using my side as an extension of their party. They or their guests from the party would come and gossip drunkenly right underneath my window, which I always kept open, lest I drown in my own sweat. The first time I ignored it, as it was only after midnight and a weekend. They stayed for like an hour though, talking crap about people as I tried to shove my pillow deep into my ear canals. Not much later, they do it again, the same people. So I open the window as far as I can and slam it back. I almost saw their souls leave their body as they scurried away. Now, there's peace beneath my window for some weeks, if you exclude the screaming children, a barking dog, and their inside parties. And then the good weather rolls around again, and the garden party ensues. The gossip a-holes all roll around once again, and everyone's pissed drunk at 3 a.m. They start babbling loudly beneath my window again, bitching about some people. And I'm thinking, oh no, this is not gonna happen. This time, I was prepared. So I grab my phone and immediately start voice recording. After a few minutes of their mean rants, I fetch my Bluetooth speaker, place it in the window, and start playing their gossip back at them, loudly enough for it to echo within the courtyard and reach the other side of the party. They shut up very quickly, and I notice the party noises and music have died down too. Nobody's saying anything. After I played all their crap talk for a bit, I'm peeking behind my curtains and I see them panicking, trying to see where the noise is coming from. But in their drunken state and with the echo, they're not entirely sure where their voices are coming from. Giving up and going back to the party, I can hear them speaking to the party guests in desperate voices, and it's clear to me now that they must have been crap talking about their friends, as the voices answering back are getting angry. It turns into a full-blown shouting argument, but this time I don't mind the noise and I cuddle my pillow satisfied. The courtyard's been blissfully free of drunken gossip for some weeks now, and I suspect they won't use it for some time to come. If they do, I'll be ready. This is the best sort of revenge, guys, one where OP didn't have to do any work aside from grabbing their phone, hitting record, and then letting the neighbors' voices shut themselves up. OP was absolutely brilliant for doing this. So since the Super Bowl just passed, I was reminded of this story that happened years ago. At the time, I lived in an apartment, and my upstairs neighbor lived with a boyfriend who was super loud. It sounded like there was a silverback above us all the time, and we used to joke that she was living with a gorilla. Anyways, one day, my roommates and I realized that she was cheating on her gorilla boyfriend, when one Thursday night, he was telling me that he was leaving to see his parents for the weekend. And we could hear another man Saturday night there being loudly intimate with her. An hour later, I can hear someone coming down the stairs in front of my apartment. Now, I totally thought she was cheating, and I had to check for myself. So I look out the peephole, and it wasn't her boyfriend. And does this make me a weirdo for looking? Maybe. Anyways, I guess she made this cheating thing a regular thing, as she continued to see both the gorilla man as well as the new guy. We knew which guy it was, depending on who we could hear through the ceiling. This goes on for a few months, and I kept it to myself until she called the cops on me. At the time, the Green Bay Packers had just won the Super Bowl, and we had a large Super Bowl party. As you can imagine, after they won, it went crazy. The party was loud, and in fairness, it was probably the loudest party that I've ever hosted. About 10 minutes after the game, she comes to my door and she starts banging. She's super angry, and she tells me to keep it down. I told her it wasn't gonna happen, but she was welcome to join us as she was wearing a Packer jersey at the time as she was yelling at me. She responds that she's gonna call the police and for us to just shut the F up. And I tell her to do what she has to do. She comes down again 10 minutes later and she asked us again to quiet down. I just shut the door. The police knock on my door 30 minutes later. They tell me that they're not giving out noise complaints, and that they just had to say that they came to the apartment. They then proceed to give high fives all around because, again, we just won the Super Bowl. A few days later, I hear her and Gorilla Man having a huge fight. They were screaming, stomping, yelling, the works, and he comes flying down the stairs in front of my apartment, and I sort of have an evil idea at this moment. I pop my head out the door and say, "Dude, you know she's cheating on you, right?" The guy responds, "For real?" I tell him, "Yep," and that's when he says, "I knew it." He then proceeds to run back up the stairs, and they fight for another 2 hours, and I never see or hear him again. She never brought it up to me, but after that, I would always say hi to her when I saw her in the hallway, and I usually had a grin on my face when I did this. Honestly, what OP did was pretty petty, but at the end of the day, I think OP did that gorilla man a favor, guys. And to think, if OP didn't host that huge party and received multiple visits from that Karen, who knows, the couple might still be together or something. So yeah, everything works out in the end. So I had a problem with a crazy neighbor in my neighborhood 9 months ago. So I live in a subdivision with a variety of age groups. You have everywhere from kids to the elderly. It's pretty much your typical suburban neighborhood. Towards the beginning of the year, I was in the driveway cleaning out my car. Now, to preface, I have a luxury sports car. I'm just saying that as it's relevant to the story. I'm not trying to brag here. Anyways, as I'm outside cleaning the car, there's a group of teenage boys that saw me and the car. They live in the neighborhood, but I don't know their names or anything like that, and they approach me. It's the usual things like nice car, how fast can it go, etc. So basically, I'm answering their questions, and this crazy lady, who's a mother of one of the kids, starts yelling for her kid, and then she yells at me from her car to stop talking to her son. The woman starts calling me a creep, saying she should call the police. I kept my cool, and I said these kids approached me. She then argued, saying that I got the car to attract kids to my house. I told her if she has a problem to call the police. I told my wife about the crazy lady, and she couldn't believe the lady had the nerve to start doing this to me. And just to be perfectly clear, I'm not a creep who preys on anyone. I don't know if she was off her rocker because my wife and I don't have kids. Anyways, my wife and I thought maybe she doesn't know us well enough. So my wife and I go to the lady's house, as she's only about 8 houses down from us. We try to introduce ourselves, but the lady's screaming, saying, "Get off my yard, pedo," before I call the police. And that's when she told my wife that she should leave me. My wife was so upset after that incident. She's very sensitive, and needless to say, there was a lot of consoling that night. Well, the lady never called police, but I found out that this has been escalating some more. About 3 months later, a neighbor who knows me well is saying how the crazy lady is accusing me of being a pedo, and then showed me the letter he got in his mailbox. That's when I found out that she's been printing out letters and sticking them in neighbors' mailboxes, telling numerous neighbors and trying to get me kicked out of the neighborhood. She was complaining to the HOA, but the HOA pretty much concluded she was crazy. That's when I noticed that people were walking by and pointing at my house. I can see through the front of my house as this is where my office is at. And here's the icing of the cake. So one day, I get a note on my door that says, "Get out of our effing neighborhood, you creep. Leave our children alone." Well, I looked at my video doorbell app that has cloud recording. It has motion detection, and I could clearly see it was her. And that's when I had enough. I decided to get in touch with a friend who's an attorney. I've done IT work for him in the past, and he wrote a cease and desist letter to this crazy lady. Included was a flash drive of the surveillance I had. It was a simple MP4, showing the kids approaching me and then showing her flipping out. Surprisingly, it picked up most of the audio. I also included the video from our doorbell. Now, I probably should have left it at that, but I needed the neighborhood to know the crap that I dealt with. Hence, I guess the following would really be the revenge. I took a PDF copy of my attorney's letter, and with the videos, I posted it to the Facebook group that only my entire neighborhood sees. I told them about the story, and everyone was quite pissed at the lady. People started posting nasty things that this crazy lady has said about me and giving me their condolences. And one of the neighbors in there wanted the entire neighborhood to know what she's done. So on top of talking about it on the social media group, he also drafted a letter and made a Dropbox link to the videos. And he personally paid postage to send it to everyone's house that wasn't on the neighborhood Facebook group. I'm guessing a lot of people told her what they think because this lady left 1 week ago. We saw a moving truck one day, and movers were working on packing all of her stuff. And it now has a for sale sign. Goodbye, Karen, we won't miss you. Yeah, after what OP had to go through, I'd say good riddance, guys, because that woman definitely seemed off her rocker. Like, who goes to that extreme to try to ruin someone without absolute proof? And the fact that she went to those extremes to try to ruin OP's life, I'd say she deserved what happened to her, guys. And that fallout was just tremendous. Try to ruin someone's life by making up lies, get basically booted from the neighborhood. Absolutely love it. So I recently just moved into my new apartment complex less than 60 days ago. There's only 4 units in my complex, 2 downstairs and 2 upstairs. I reside downstairs in the second apartment. Everyone has lived here for at least 5 years, while the oldest resident has resided here for 8. Everyone knows everyone, and they've been good friends with each other for as long as each one has been a resident. Everyone in my building has children, besides me, and a majority are single mothers, and I'm the only man. Apparently, there's an unspoken agreement between the rest of the tenants that the hallway door is never to be locked. No one locks the hallway door. That is, until I arrive. From my knowledge, no one in the building has a hallway key, just the keys to their apartments. The cost to replace a key is $70 for each, quoted from my landlord. I've just finished up my place, and I've officially moved in for about 3 weeks now. Each time I leave and come back from my complex, I always lock the hallway door. It's always been a habit to lock all doors behind me. With that said, my neighbor that works night shifts has arrived home for the past couple of weeks to a locked hallway door, which is a surprise, given that the door hasn't been locked for years. Apparently, everyone has lost their keys the first year or so living in the complex. I'll hear continuous knocking and banging until someone comes to open the door. The first few nights, I was awakened and I got up to unlock the door. After the first week, I've since stopped, and my neighbor will be up to unlock to let our neighbor in. If my neighbor isn't home or doesn't wake up to come to the door, she'll knock and bang on every window and yell until someone comes to open the door. Well, yesterday, my neighbor asked if I could please leave the door unlocked, given it's always been that way, and would like me to continue doing so. I expressed that we live in a dangerous neighborhood. It's a neighborhood rated one of the top 5 most dangerous in our city, and that I feel more safe knowing strangers can't enter the building. While she did understand my concerns, she assured me that no one ever comes here but residents and invited visitors, and my safety is not to worry. I had to beg to differ. She then asked, would I mind lending her my hall key so she can make a copy and let others make their own copies. I politely declined because I wasn't comfortable with that. She then offered to pay me to make a copy myself, which I also declined. For the past week, my neighbors have barely spoken to me. We usually say good morning and chat a little or just say hi and bye, but not even that nowadays. My neighbor, whom volunteers at the food bank in our community, would usually come back with a box of goodies and share with everyone in the complex. She's since stopped knocking on my door to deliver me a box, as she usually would every Wednesday. Now, I don't care for the food, but for the change in this routine, it leads me to believe that I may have upset the rest of the tenants. And honestly, I don't want any bad blood, so am I the a-hole? So in my opinion, OP is the a-hole in this one, guys, especially if he's the new neighbor and starts locking a door that hasn't been locked for years. Like, I do understand that he feels unsafe with just anyone being allowed into the building, but him locking out the others makes it dangerous for them, especially at night. And seriously, the only solution here, if OP doesn't want them copying his key, is to talk to the landlord and get everyone new keys to make everyone feel safe. And this person says, if they pay you for a copy, then I don't really see your issue anymore. It's $70 for the landlord to do it, so it would be cheaper if you did it for everyone. If you want that community and connection, you have to give a little to get a little back. You are the a-hole. Yeah, I would definitely say this is the best solution. Do the families a solid, OP, and have that building door locked to make it safer for everyone. Like, it's a no-brainer. Guys, let me know what you think, though. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /PettyRevenge. Guys, if you enjoyed the stories, do hit that like button and subscribe if you're not subscribed. If you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/entitled People episode, where a psycho Karen mom demands OP give up her wheelchair because she can walk. It's such a ridiculous story, so go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.